Good YouTube, it's your boy Bluebird Sports TV back at y'all with another one. So, Olympic gold medalist, 6 division world champion, 3 division lineal champion, Hall of Fame, legend, icon, superstar boxer turned promoter and CEO of Golden Boy Promotions, Oscar the Golden Boy Dela Hoya. Well, Oscar Dela Hoya, he let it all hang out when it comes to a former fighter who was under his stable. Oscar De La Hoya, he finished his career 39 wins, 6 losses, 30 wins by way of knockout. 2 times in his career, he was knocked out. Okay? By Bernard Hopkins and by Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao. With that said, 6 division world champion, lineal champion, 3 divisions, Hall of Famer, Olympic gold medalist, Oscar De La Hoya has faced some of the greatest fighters in the history of the sport of boxing. Win, lose, or draw. Oscar De La Hoya, when it came to his boxing career, he didn't avoid any fighters. Except early in his career, he chose not to fight his rival, legendary, former pound-for-pound king, former pay-per-view king, former 5 division world champion, superstar legend who retired, Hall of Famer, 50-0, and beat Oscar De La Hoya in what at the time was the biggest fight in the sport of boxing, in Floyd Money Mayweather. Early in his career, Oscar De La Hoya, he said that Floyd Mayweather was too high of a risk, too low of a reward, and he let the fight build up. And he was right, because it turned into the biggest lucrative fight in the history of the sport of boxing at that time. But that said, that was 2007. That said, Oscar De La Hoya, he's faced the best, some of the best in the world. And now he has an issue, which it could be a little bit of saltiness on the part of his former fighter who got out of his contract with him, and 4 division world champion, Mexican superstar boxer Saul Canelo Alvarez, who is currently the unified super middleweight WBC, WBO, WBA, Ring Magazine super middleweight world champion superstar boxer. With that said, Canelo Alvarez, he too fought in a huge lucrative fight against Floyd Mayweather, in which he lost. But Oscar De La Hoya, he ran into a lot of issues with Canelo Alvarez, according to Oscar De La Hoya. And one of the biggest issues that he had with Canelo Alvarez is that Canelo Alvarez simply didn't want to fight some of the fights that was on the table. Canelo Alvarez, 56 wins, 1 loss, 2 draws, 38 wins by way of knockout. He stands at 5'8" with a 69-inch arm reach, okay? He unified the belts. Last time we saw him in the ring was against Billy Joe Saunders, Cinco de Mayo weekend, when she got a knockout victory over Billy Joe Saunders. With that said, Oscar De La Hoya, he's letting it all hang out. He's taking to social media. He's doing interviews. He just posted on social media that Canelo Alvarez, he does everything wrong. But before we get to that, technically he says Canelo Alvarez does everything wrong. But before we get to that, we have to understand that he said that it was a strain to get Canelo Alvarez in the big fights. The fights with undefeated 2 division world champion, who currently is the reigning WBC middleweight world champion, and Jamal Lions Only Charlo. He also stated that it was an issue getting Canelo Alvarez in the ring with Gennady Triple G Golovkin, although that did come to fruition. But he said it was pulling teeth to get Canelo Alvarez in the ring with Gennady Triple G Golovkin. And both of these are valid points on the part of Oscar De La Hoya, because we know Canelo Alvarez, he had an issue with the WBC when they ordered that he had to face off against Triple G. Okay, he wasn't happy with that. That he felt like they forced him into a fight with Gennady Triple G Golovkin. They fought twice. First fight ended in draw. Second fight ended, saw him be the victor. We know against Jamal Charlo, he was in two divisions where he could have faced off against Jamal Charlo, and most recently at middleweight, he had Jamal Charlo was his mandatory challenger, and he avoided that fight. And he stated when Jamal Charlo was his mandatory challenger, according to WBC president Mauricio Suleiman, he petitioned the WBC to be franchised, so he didn't have to face Jamal Charlo, who was his mandatory. Also, Oscar De La Hoya said he didn't want to fight 2 division world champion who's undefeated and reigning WBO middleweight world champion, and Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade. who recently he just kicked out of a press conference, Boo Boo Andrade. He addressed him at the press conference, and he said, when is he going to get his opportunity? We know Canelo Alvarez, after beating Gennady Triple G Golovkin, he was in position to become undisputed. All he had to do was face and defeat Demetrius Andrade, and he chose not to do it. He then chose to dare to be great and go up to light heavyweight and challenge what was seen at the time was the weaker of the champions in former pound-for-pound fighter in Sergey Kovalev. But Sergey Kovalev, he was already knocked out by Almeida Alvarez, Andre Ward. He was in a tough fight, a rematch with Almeida Alvarez, and he was in a tough fight right before the Canelo Alvarez fight against Anthony Yard, a young upcoming rising fighter who looked like he was on the verge of stopping Sergey Kovalev. And it was a short turnaround. But nonetheless, Canelo Alvarez, he achieved beating Sergey Kovalev. So he could have fought Demetrius Andrade at the time. So Oscar De La Hoya is saying that he does not want to fight the best. So with that said, David Benavidez, undefeated, two-time WBC super middleweight world champion, Mexican superstar boxer, he was the WBC champion. He missed weight on the scale. Immediately, WBC, they removed him as the WBC champion. And immediately, according to WBC President Mauricio Suleiman, Canelo Alvarez, he petitioned to fight Avni Yildirim, a former sparring partner of his, who was on a 2-year layoff and coming off a loss. He hadn't had a win since 2018. He petitioned to fight Avni Yildirim for the vacant WBC title on the zone under Golden Boy. Oscar De La Hoya, he was having none of it. He said, not this type of fight. We're not going to pay you that type of money for these level of fights. The zone was unwilling to do so as well. Canelo Alvarez, he then took them to court. He got out of his contract. He cited some issues in the wording in the contract. He eventually was able to get out of his contract with Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy Promotions. And then he went into still a unification bout with Caleb Smith, who was the undefeated WBA super middleweight reigning champion. But before that, the WBC, out of 32 board members, 31 agreed that they would give him the opportunity to fight Avni Yildirim for the vacant WBC title. And Oscar De La Hoya is saying, well, he could have fought David Benavidez in a big fight. If we're going to put out this type of money, he's going to have to fight the best fights, okay? Oscar De La Hoya was simply saying that he didn't want to put on these types of events with lackluster opposition. He wants to put these type of events on with the best opposition possible. And he simply was not willing to fight the best opposition out there. He wanted the road less easiest travel, okay? And so with that said, Oscar De La Hoya is saying that it wasn't worth putting up $30 million for him to fight Avni Yildirim. Nonetheless, he fought Caleb Smith. He beat Caleb Smith for the vacant title and became the unified champion. The WBA and WBC was on the line. And then he still fought Avni Yildirim. He did a 3-fight deal on the zone to secure a fight with Caleb Smith and a fight with Billy Joe Saunders. He beat all 3, and now he's a free agent looking to fight off against IBF undefeated super middleweight world champion superstar boxer Caleb Sweethand Plant. With that said, that's going to take place in September. And now fast forward, Oscar De La Hoya is saying that, Canelo Alvarez does things all wrong. His technique is wrong. He throws punches wrong. And he shouldn't be teaching the youth. Wow. And he says that he believes that Caleb Plant, with the right mindset, will beat Canelo Alvarez in September. Wow. So he said that obviously he avoided Jamal Charlo, Demetrius Andrade, and didn't want to fight Gennady Triple G Golovkin. So at this point in time, Oscar De La Hoya is simply letting it all hang out. Okay. He's saying that he was difficult to deal with, and he didn't want to fight the big fights. And I mean, it's a valid point because we know Jamal Charlo was his mandatory challenger. He didn't take the fight. We know Demetrius Andrade was 1 fight away from being undisputed. He didn't take that fight. We know he had issues with not wanting to fight Gennady Triple G Golovkin. He ended up having to take those fights, but he did not want to take those fights. Okay, we know that he travels the path of least resistance at times. Okay, picks and chooses his route to become to pad his stats essentially. Canelo Alvarez is a very good fighter. Oscar De La Hoya says he has a lot of flaws and he shouldn't be teaching the youth. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of saltiness on the part of Oscar De La Hoya, as Canelo Alvarez is a big draw in the sport of boxing, and his company, Golden Boy Promotions, had took a big hit. And also, Canelo Alvarez, he has a huge influence on rising undefeated Mexican superstar title contender King Ryan Garcia, who's 22 years of age, and he's still on the Golden Boy, but he could be looking to make his way from Golden Boy as well. So he's losing a lot of talent, and obviously there's a saltiness on his part. But we saw legendary Hall of Fame, iconic superstar boxer who's retired now, Bernard Hopkins. He uttered the same sentiments when he had a conversation with Demetrius Andrade. He alluded to that Canelo Alvarez is simply not going to fight you if you don't continue to put pressure on him. He's not going to look to fight you. Why would he? Too much talent. So Bernard Hopkins is saying this. Oscar De La Hoya is saying this. We heard Terrence Crawford. There's a lot of fighters that are saying this. That Canelo Alvarez, he rather travel the path of least resistance to pad the stats and build up his accolades. So we got to see how this unfolds in September with Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant is very big, 6'1", with a 74-inch arm reach, but he's a slick boxer, and those are the type of boxers that usually give Canelo Alvarez tons and tons of trouble. And he says that Oscar De La Hoya, with the right mindset, Caleb Plant can win that fight in September as well, because Canelo Alvarez, well, he has tons of flaws in his game. But every boxer has tons of flaws in his game. Oscar De La Hoya, well, he didn't have the quickest feet in the world either, okay? But Oscar De La Hoya was willing to get in there with the best of the best. So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. Make sure you hit the like button, drop a comment in the comment section, let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for you. Peace.
This is Amanda, the Real Deal Serrano, and you're watching Blue Blood Sports TV.